Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons, by people who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever. And as always, my name is Dan.
And as always, my name is Jack.
And today we are going to be watching an episode from season 26. That is
this season.
The current season of The Simpsons. This one aired in January, so just 4 months ago. Right. And it is called Bart's New Friend.
Why are we doing this episode?
Well, first of all, have you seen this episode, Jack?
No.
As I always ask.
I stopped watching new episodes completely so that I could watch them fresh on the show.
Yes, that's why I stopped watching them 14 years ago.
But the problem is, I was really curious. You know, I get really curious. Like, this episode followed The Man Who Came to Be Dinner, the alien one.
Yes,
and I really wanted to watch that episode when it aired out of curiosity. So it kind of sucks when episodes air, and I really want to watch them, but I really want to wait for the show. Yeah. And this was one of those that I heard the story behind it. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this.
Well, wait no longer, Picone, because today is that day. We're going to be watching Bart's New Friend, notable because it was written by Judd Apatow. I believe it was a spec script he wrote when he was kind of just starting out. I think it was in the early 90s he had written. And they decided to dust it off because Judd Apatow is super famous now and
can do whatever he wants.
Exactly. So we're going to watch that. If you have not yet seen it, you can do so on simpsonsworld.com. Go to wepodcast.com. We have a link to it. And just go to wepodcast.com anyway, because that's where you can submit episodes and all sorts of fun stuff. So we're going to watch it now, and we're going to take a little break to do that. And when we come back, we're going to talk about it. And
hope it's good.
Hope it's good. We really do hope it's good.
Yeah, probably won't be. But we do.
So what do we do?
Do not force the truth. For now, treat Homer just as you would a regular 10-year-old boy.
Can he be 9 so I can beat him up?
Oh, I'm afraid not. The rules of hypnotism are inflexible.
Then can we get pizza on the way home?
Ask for boogers in Bart's half.
Good one.
Booger pizza. You better pray they find that hypnotist, Marge.
So that was Bart's New Friend, which we previously said was written by Judd Apatow, or at least the original spec script was written when he was 22 in the early 90s.
Yes. Like the very first season of The Simpsons.
Yeah, and we're assuming, you can tell because there's modern references that they did some
There's a lot of talk about Wi-Fi and stacked parking.
It's not like it's a word for word, it's his script, which I think would have been much more interesting to do, like a weird period
It would have been interesting, yeah, but...
It might not have worked, yeah. But
there's at least one very funny thing that we'll get to that I'm sure was not in the original, because one of the characters didn't exist yet.
And there's lots of instances like that, so we're gonna... It's hard to tell what Judd Apatow actually wrote and what was written by the rewrites in the writer's room, and maybe even Al Jean did a pass. So keep that in mind while we talk about this. But it was written, the idea, and I'm sure a decent part of the script was written by Judd Apatow as a spec. And by the way, if you don't know what a spec is,
speculative.
Spec is speculative. It's what I went to film school, and it's what we write. It's pretty much a sample. It's a script that you write as kind of like a portfolio to put out there, and you can write a spec that's original IP. Or like intellectual property, or you can write a spec that is which is very common for TV sitcoms, especially, is you write specs of existing shows to show that you can adopt that style and write in that style.
It's writing you don't get paid for.
Yeah,
basically.
And at least before the internet really decentralized the whole TV industry, the way they taught me 12 years ago in film school was
they're old, Jack.
was you write 2 spec scripts of 2 existing shows. You don't write your own pilot because you're not getting your own pilot, and that's pretty much your calling card. You pass these 2 spec scripts of existing shows around, and that's how you get hired onto a TV show. So Judd Apatow was a struggling writer, aspiring writer, and he wrote 2 specs. He wrote one for Get a Life, the Chris Elliott show, and he wrote a Simpsons spec, and that was how he tried to get jobs on TV shows. I don't know if that's how he got his job, like writing for the Ben Stiller show or whatever, but
idea.
It's much more complicated than that. But every writer had a spec script back then, and even today you still have specs. So it's a little bit more. Now you can kind of write original stuff now, but.
Well, it took him 25 years,
but he
made it, man. He's on that Simpsons. His name's in lights.
And obviously, Judd Apatow is the writer-director of
many
40-Year-Old
successful films,
Virgin, and many others.
Knocked Up.
His career started taking off. I mean, 40-Year-Old Virgin was the big one for him, but he wrote for Ben Stiller's show, and he wrote for a few other shows. But
I don't remember if he wrote, but he definitely produced on The Cable Guy. which-
Okay, yeah.
That's where he met his future wife and future star of many of his films,
Yeah.
Leslie Mann.
Yeah. And he also helped cast, he produced Freaks and Geeks, and he helped
Yes.
cast that, and he pretty much discovered Seth Rogen and James Franco and
Yep.
and that cast, and he took a Seth Rogen under his wing especially, and made him a writer for his next sitcom and a star, Undeclared,
Undeclared, yeah.
which was a great show. It only lasted for one season, like Freaks and Geeks. That was a really funny show that was on in 2000. But he discovered Seth Rogen, who was just a local in the Canadian city that they were filming in, and he saw something in him. So he's made all
There's the brief history of Judd Apatow's career.
So now we got that away.
Yeah.
And then a brief. I guess we'll talk about the episode.
Let's just
real
talk about
quick.
the episode.
It starts off
Soup to nuts.
Yeah. Homer. Well, you know what? Let's just skip ahead. Homer goes. They go to the circus.
Yeah, there's not much of a plot. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Homer goes to the circus. He gets hypnotized to being a 10-year-old boy. He and Bart become best friends, and then Homer gets taken out of the hypnotism.
Yeah,
Done.
and
That's
that's
it.
it. That's pretty
That's
much
it. It's a real straight episode. There's not really a B plot. And I think that is to the episode's benefit
Well,
because last week,
yeah.
the episode was not
Last week
straightforward
was
at all.
This was like a very big contrast to last week's episode.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that. I've got some interesting B plot notions. But why don't we
Now
talk about
that is not about your plot for the bees to get your honey and your hive.
I do have that other
you have a-
nefarious B plot.
Save that for your hive cast where you're just talking about bees.
Save that for my podcast.
What's buzzing with Jack? A Jack Pine Cone. That doesn't make any sense
Pine cones have nothing
bees
to do
have
with
nothing to do
bees.
with bees.
But I see what you did.
I'm trying.
Let's start where we typically start, and maybe this will end up with the lead scenes, maybe it won't. But let's talk about the couch gag.
Couch gag, yes. So the couch gag was a pretty traditional retelling of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, with Homer, Marge, and Bart as Mama, Papa, and Baby Bear, and Lisa as Goldilocks. Except when it was not traditional at the very end. So we all know the story of Goldilocks, but at the very end, they turn on Lisa and they start fighting, and then it cuts to another scene where Lisa, Marge as a bear, and Bart as a bear are eating the corpse of Homer's bear character. That was weird.
Yeah.
Before that, it was cute. I was like, oh, this is kind of nice.
It was cute. I
Because
didn't.
instead of beds, it was couches, and they were all destroyed, and Lisa had, like,
That was the only thing I liked with the couches with the beds. The rest, like you said, it was cute and the animation was nice.
Yeah.
It was just, but it wasn't funny. There was nothing to it. It was like just kind of a waste of time. As much as I did like seeing it.
but this is what they do now, because this is this season. They do the long couch gags now, which is what it is.
I'm not against the long couch gags or the weird experiments if they're like interesting. But like I said, I know Goldilocks. It's not, it's a very fundamental story, but it's not something I need to see.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I liked the couch opening. I even liked the randomness of it turning into them eating Homer.
So that I really didn't like, because it was very jarring. It just suddenly like cuts to them eating Homer. It's like, what?
It was very, very jarring, but it's they kind of go for the shock factor now with the couch gags. I feel like
Yeah,
that
I
weird
think so.
Don Hertzfeld
Like
one.
that Don Hertzfeld's gonna be weird. And,
Well, that's
that
what
other
you get
one
him
that
for.
really, the one we did like the second episode of our podcast was with the weird gory.
Yeah, right. Was it
some
like the Ren and
anime.
Stimpy style animation?
No. It was
Well, that one was weird
There
too.
was like one where it was like a heart was pumping. They were going through the human body, and
Oh, right.
Who can remember 28 weeks ago?
Yeah,
29 weeks ago.
I can't remember 5 minutes ago. Hey, everybody! Welcome to worst episode ever.
By the way, if
Are
anybody's
you restarting the episode? Should I come in now?
no, you wait for that bus.
This bus, for the love of Christ!
I just put up a bus stop sign at a random corner to keep them occupied. There's no bus coming. I don't have the heart to tell them.
Don't. He already left, so don't tell them.
Okay.
So the episode starts. Do you have something you want to say at the beginning?
It's Homer singing during the.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even going to mention that. Yeah, Homer sings a little song about like he wishes he was in Florida
Yeah,
or
so
something.
I don't mind the singing what you're doing. I do it all the time at work, typing
too,
my
me too.
file, stapling my stapler.
Yep, scratching my butt.
Yeah. So we
Not
all do
doing
it.
my work.
We sing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because life is a short, existential, miserable nothingness, and you do what you can.
You do what you can,
get
yes.
through. But I didn't like this because he's just singing, and again, I don't know if Apatow wrote this or back in 1990, or if the writers wrote this in 2014, but It's just basically him walking down the corridor and saying, "I'm walking down the corridor." And what it reminded me of was the opening to Marge versus the Monorail. Is that
That is an episode,
The Flintstones one? Which one? Or Homer Goes to College?
That might be Homer
I know
Goes to
Conan
College.
O'Brien wrote the episode. That's why I thought Monorail. I think it's Homer Goes to College. So anyway, it opens with whatever episode opens with
Homer singing the
Flintstones song,
Yeah.
and it's just Simpson.
Not
Homer
himself.
Simpson. That's a really funny thing, and it ends with the chestnut tree gag where he
Right, very funny.
I like that. This was basically the same thing. I mean, doesn't have the Flintstones theme to it,
Right.
But it's basically the singing what you're doing, but a less funny version.
And
it's like,
potentially was written before that scene,
right.
though.
But yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if Apatow
Yeah.
did, but it's just, I don't, why do the same scene again less funny? I didn't like it.
I didn't dislike it. It was just kind of like a nothing to start the episode because the real meat is he's walking by like a retirement party and goes in and kind of
Which
the episode starts there.
has a Flintstones reference, oddly enough, where
You're
somebody
right.
says it's like, I'm at that time where
It's at the time where I'm at the tip of the brontosaurus tail or something like that.
which is
like
a
he's
great
on his way
metaphor,
out.
yeah.
It is. That's pretty smart.
and before we get into that retirement party, there was a couple of posters in the nuclear power plant that Homer walked by.
Yeah.
There was one, like a Burns propaganda one, which was like a Soviet Russia thing. It was like whatever. I really liked, there was one where it said, "When in doubt, put it out," and it was like a puzzled plant worker looking at a trash can on fire. And I just love the idea that they wouldn't know, like, should I put this fire out? Should we put this fire out?
Delightful.
Remember we thought that was going to be a thing?
Yeah.
Who knew it was going to be Grufik that caught on? We really thought there was going to be the "should we cut this fan art?"
Yeah, but no, Grufik took home the gold. No love yet for his brother Tufik.
No, Tufik's not doing as
not
well
been named.
in the ratings.
I've always remembered where your cup.
Mom always liked me more.
Who's Tufik in this situation? Now I'm confused. Who am I?
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Perfect. Yeah, so Stacy Keach plays the other safety inspector of 7G. Apparently there's been two the whole time.
Right.
Which, if Judd Apatow wrote this in season 1, which he claims he did during season 1,
Yeah.
which means there was a second safety inspector for 3 episodes as opposed to 603. And he's retiring, and it really has nothing to do with anything, right? I guess there's a theme of like, don't grow old or.
Well, I actually liked it. I thought it was a good idea that this guy for the past 26 years, not really in Simpsons
Right.
world time, but in TV land time. Not to be confused with the time television shows are on the network TV land. In TV land time.
I'm me, and you're.
Why are we so confusing this episode?
This episode, all of them.
This episode.
Did you listen to Grufik?
The Simpsons.
Did you listen to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
This episode was so straightforward, and I feel like we are making it very tangent-y Web of Spider-Man episode. I don't remember what my point was, but I liked the idea that there was a second safety inspector of 7G who we'd never seen.
Yeah,
it worked for me.
I didn't hate it.
Stacey
Didn't love
Keach
it.
was funny. Okay, so I thought that was a funny idea, and that's about all I have to say about that scene. You're right; it never came back. I guess
It came back once where after Homer becomes a 10-year-old, Lenny and Carl are outside the window, and I feel like the only reason, I don't want to say shoehorned in because it wasn't forced in per se. It was
it was a fun,
it's like a comfortable fitting shoe that you've been wearing for 5 years and it just kind of slipped on.
Yeah, The Simpsons always do, or even, back in the classic days, there would be an opening scene that was unconnected from the rest of the episode. Now it's just everything's unconnected from anything. So it was nice to have this one scene and then kind of the plot really started. There was one really nice thing I liked where Stacy Keach's character is retiring and Mr. Burns comes over and says, "It's time for the gold watch," and he has to give up his gold watch, and Mr. Burns has a closet of gold watches.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very funny thing. I could see Judd Apatow
Did
writing
you
that.
notice in the first few scenes Homer's voice sounded slurred?
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if it was. We watched this one on.
Well, you watched it on your Xbox.
We watched it
usually
on the
don't.
Xbox, yeah. So and for whatever reason, my connection's never great on my Xbox. It's like So I don't know. It sounded slurred.
It was really
off.
just this one scene after that, the retirement party scene. Homer comes home to Marge, and that was also just a weirdly staged scene because Homer comes in and it's night night, and he's in a trench coat, and Marge is like in her bathrobe, just like about to go upstairs, and Homer comes in, and they have a conversation there, and then it cuts to another scene.
Yeah,
which was weird.
It was weird.
But Homer came in and he starts talking, and he was like kind of slurred a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Like he wasn't supposed to be drunk, I don't think, because they never made a reference to that. But it was just this like weird fact of this scene.
We talked last week about how Nancy Cartwright and Julie Kavner didn't quite get their voices. There was a few scenes where their voices. Well, last week it was Nancy Cartwright didn't get her voices down pat for a couple of Bart scenes. That's what maybe like Dan Castellaneta just, I don't know, he was off on his Homer voice.
He was trying to do an Omen era voice because this was an old script.
Talk butts, get some frosty chocolate butts.
Homie, did you get the frosted butts?
No, my butt is full of poop.
All right, so Homer sounded kind of like that. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember what they talked about in that weird little scene, but it was just kind of inconsequential.
I don't know.
I think Homer was stressed out because now he was going to have to do... That's what it did. It set up... This guy retiring meant Homer had to actually do work now.
Oh, that's
and he becomes
right.
overworked.
So now he's actually at home working all the time on his laptop.
And then they hypnotize him to become a kid.
Which I remember reading about this Judd Apatow episode. I remember that Al Jean or somebody said, that they had to do some rewriting to update it. And I think they mentioned specifically like the Wi-Fi, like they incorporated the Wi-Fi because, Homer complains about Wi-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi. Yeah. I'm very curious. I would love to see the actual Judd Apatow script and see what they changed. Because I'm sure there was something analogous to that. But I wonder what was the early 1990s version of like you can't get a good Wi-Fi signal.
Right.
I can't even think of what it would be. Like,
I don't know. There is none. There was none.
Isn't it amazing that time has changed so much in 25 years?
It's interesting, too. Homer is a safety inspector for a certain sector of the power plant. Like, what work can he really do on a laptop at the circus?
I'm imagining he's venting radioactive gas.
Right. That's all I can think of is that one episode, King Size Homer, when he did that. But
he actually becomes the safety inspector by working at home.
Whatever. There was one scene where Lenny and Carl were trying to get in and out of the bathroom without setting off the automatic toilet flushes, and they were like, "We're doing it like ninjas." What did you think of that? Do you like that?
It seems that's like one of those things. It's kind of in the vein of what we call the stand-up humor, where it's like, haven't you noticed this? And now we're gonna do this straight-up expositional thing. So this isn't quite that, but it's. I feel like a writer noticed. If not at Apatow, probably not. I feel like it's a little bit newer than that. But somebody was like, "Hey, automatic flushers. You ever like try to walk away?" So I don't know. I feel like there's a way to have. Either you just can't do it and don't bother because it's so trivial, or there's a way to do it better. But I don't know. It seems like it was a little.
I kind of liked it. I thought it was funny when Lenny like came out like a ninja, and then here's the flush, and he's like, "Ah, damn."
It's funny because I hate to sound like a hypocrite, but that's what I am. I'm born and raised hypocrite.
You are.
But we were talking last week. Maybe. I don't know. But
it may not have made the cut, even though you edit the show.
So we've talked about on the show a few times, and Bryce was even talking about last week, about how much experimentation the Simpsons should do to try to keep it fresh. And and we say we want them to experiment because anything's better than what we've been getting. And this was this Lenny Carl scene was almost. It was like kind of too silly for me, and I don't want to give them shit because they should try silly stuff because it could work. I don't know, but this didn't. I don't know. This kind of fell flat for me.
It just seems like that's the kind of dumb like workplace game that they might do just to pass the time. I could see Lenny and Carl.
All right, that's a good point. I'm
like It didn't strike me as especially silly. They've done a lot, especially in this season and the recent seasons.
I guess I'm looking way too into it just because I personally didn't like it, so I'm trying to come up with some kind of smart way of saying I didn't like it, but I don't know. I didn't hate it.
So Homer becomes overworked, and he's like working around the clock. He's working at the breakfast.
By the way,
table.
He's working at the breakfast table. Don't you love, even in the classic years? Don't you love when he has those half reading glasses?
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
Aren't they the best?
They're so good. They make him look so much smarter.
They're better than Henry Kissinger's glasses.
That's right. Yeah, so Homer has his glasses out. He's like writing in a ledger. And I liked Lisa says, like, you said we couldn't do homework at the breakfast table. And he just goes, it's called a double standard.
Yeah,
It's a secret of parenting.
Again, and like
I like that.
It sucks not knowing if Apatow wrote that or the writers' room wrote that, but that was probably one of my favorite, top 3 favorite lines in the entire episode. And it's very funny. It's a funny line. It's called the double standard. But also Dan Castellaneta as Homer nailed the delivery.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a great line.
And it wasn't like obnoxious jerk Homer. It was like
Exactly.
it was like regular Homer.
Parent Homer,
like it's
yeah.
called like not in a jerky way. Like
I think that's what I mean when I say I really liked his delivery. He sold it in a way that wasn't jerk ass Homer.
Right.
Yeah.
Always appreciated to not have jerk ass Homer. I don't remember specifically what it was, but I know there was a line about Angelina Jolie directing movies.
They were complaining about the economy and jobs, which is funny because if that is an Apatow line, it's funny how after 25 years, it's all cyclical. But war in Iraq and all that jazz. It's the same.
Are you saying we're due for another war in Iraq in like 10 years?
Right now, we need another one. It's been too long.
You heard the troops. Jack says it's time to go to war. Use your phony guns as clubs.
No, the line was like even Angelina Jolie has to turn to directing.
Right, but I don't remember why that came up.
Because of the economy and you have to diversify your job. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. It was just whatever.
It seemed, it's kind of funny to make a comment about something specific like that. I'm not going to give it shit for being specific. But it seemed a little stand-up.
The fact that I don't even remember what the joke was.
That's true.
But
it also, I remember thinking at the time, it was like, this was too observational. It's like, hey, Angelina Jolie directing movies. That's a thing, huh?
Yeah, that's not really a joke.
Right.
She is directing movies. So.
Yeah.
And then Marge says, oh no, being a workaholic is the worst aholic ever. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's
not super clever, but whatever.
Yeah,
it was a good Marge
yeah.
line because Marge is Marge.
So, alcoholic was the original holic, right?
Yes, since it's alcohol.
So, and now, what's the word? There's got to be a word for that, right? Like spoonerism or portmanteau. Yeah, there's got to be a word for when you give a suffix to something that it has no place being there because...
Oh, there is.
Like Zilla, like everything Godzilla now.
Oh, man. We could pause it and look it up. It's like when you say blank is the new black.
We should just talk about it for 10 minutes because like the iTunes reviewers love it when we just dither about and just think about something without ever actually looking it up and stopping and pausing and editing it.
Snow clones. I think that's what it is.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
I'm looking up on
Wikipedia.
That shit.
I love that there's like words for everything now.
A multi-use, customizable, instantly recognizable, time-worn, quoted, or misquoted phrase or sentence that can be used in an entirely open array of different variants.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Can you say that again in the tune of Frere Jacques?
Multi-use... No, I'm not doing that. Yeah, so I think it's a snow clone, or maybe it's not, and we just made it up. It doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Snow cone.
Snow cones are
I like
great.
when it all turns into purple.
Those are the best. Unless you got a red one, and if it turns into purple, you got a messed up snow cone, my friend.
It's what's the Flanders snow cones?
Flanders nachos.
Original for me.
Oh yeah, plain snow cone. All right. Okay. So then we get to the circus, and I guess Homer goes to relax, even though he brings his laptop with him, and he's complaining about how he doesn't get Wi-Fi.
Which it's funny because. All right, if this was a early 1990s spec episode, there probably wouldn't be a laptop because they weighed about 80 pounds at the time.
Right.
I have my dad's laptop in my closet because I can't remember the password. He can't remember the password, and there's like 2 short stories I wrote when I was like 8 that I really want to get off. So I'm just I'm just holding on to it until I meet somebody who can figure it out.
Wait. There's a lot to unpack here. Like, when are you ever going to find someone who knows how to hack into, like, a 25-year-old laptop?
I don't know, but it takes up so much space because it's huge. It's so heavy and big.
You should
it's
just
like a
pull
Toshiba.
the hard drive and try to, like, read the hard drive.
I don't know how to do any of that.
All right, maybe I could probably do it.
Well, anyway, so it's too old for him to have a laptop, but if since this episode aired, like, 3 months ago, you'd think instead of him, it would be more realistic if instead of him bringing his laptop to the circus, wouldn't it make more sense if he's on a smartphone? Because that's what real workaholics do. Is like they're always constantly checking their email on their tablet or their smartphone.
Yeah.
But whatever. Well, that's nitpicking.
Neither here nor there.
It's somewhere.
Well, but if it's not here,
it's got to be there.
It's not there.
It's got to be there if it's not here.
Where is
There's
it,
no
Jack?
other air.
It's
up
in the air with George Clooney and Anna Kendrick.
And The
and
woman
Vera
from
Farmiga.
Vera Farmiga.
Vera Farmiga. Vera Farmiga.
What is this?
This is a deleted scene, is what this is. So let's get back to it.
Farts.
Okay, Homer is at the circus, and there was a flashback that I personally loved.
Loved
Loved it.
Hands down.
Because it's Grandpa and Homer at the circus, and what was it? The lion tamer starts getting attacked by the lion, and Grandpa jumps in front of Homer and says, No, look over there, look
Which
over
is
there.
nice that Grandpa's actually trying to be a good dad and trying
Absolutely.
to stop his son from seeing this horrible accident. I was actually
Yes.
surprised. I was shocked at first. I was
Same.
like, oh my God, he's being a good dad.
Same, very shocked.
But
he says, no, look over there, and he looks over there, and an elephant is about to step on a guy's head.
No, isn't he just stomping on it repeatedly?
Yeah, that's right. And then Grandpa's like, no, look over there. And he looks, and it's like candy cone, or candy cane. No,
cotton
canes.
candy.
Cotton candy, $10 a cone. And Grandpa's like, $10? No, look back at the elephants.
It was
Great,
so
pitch
good.
perfect.
I mean, here's why I think we both loved it. All right, so you have Grandpa not being a jerk-ass grandpa. He's being a good dad.
It's legitimately sweet.
You have it upping is like, all right, so you're doing the classic comedy rules of escalating. So you go from trapeze guy falling to elephant stamping on a guy's head. So that
Right.
makes sense just from escalating. But the visual and a Simpsons visual, animal
Right.
animation and all that of an elephant
Stamping on a guy's head.
Stomping on a guy's head. So that's great. And then the third beat. So now you're like, all right, now it's going to be even more violent or gruesome.
Right,
The
but it
idea
pulls it
that
back.
It's Grandpa. He's still a good dad, but he doesn't want to pay $10.
Exactly.
It,
To him, that's more objectionable than
Exactly.
the guy's head getting crushed.
It's a perfect way to tell a joke. It is something that the classic Simpsons, the first 8-9 seasons they did it constantly, and it's why that show is considered, if not the greatest, one of the greatest television shows of all time.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've been looking for. And we're not. This episode wasn't full of them. This was the exception to the rule, but.
Well, this episode had a lot of good things in it.
It did, but this
This is one of the best things.
Yeah, this is that was like close, if not up to classic era level humor.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to see that and really refreshing.
Yeah. Another classic era type thing was they go out to the freak show area, and all of the tents had funny names, and they didn't show them very long. I didn't see all of them, but they were kind of cutesy with it. They were all Judd Apatow things, tweaked to be like freaks.
Look, if you're doing this thing, which I don't think has ever been done before, where somebody had made it so big that you just took his spec script from 25 years ago and made it into an episode, that he's earned his right to have this gag. I actually didn't think it was very funny, though. The names were really lame. It was like, instead of super bad, it was super fat. There was a fat guy.
The 400-year-old virgin.
Yeah, there was Drill Bit Taylor I remember seeing, but I don't remember seeing
I didn't see
parody
that
of it. I think it might have just said Drill. I don't know.
I did like one of them was just Freaks and Geeks because it was a freak show tent.
Yeah, that's not bad. See, that's smart.
Yeah, if they had just gone to a freak tent and it was just called Freaks and Geeks, that could have been
Yeah.
good. But I didn't mind it. I thought it was more cute than funny.
Yeah, it's cutesy. I wouldn't call it cute.
The big difference between cute and cutesy.
I feel like
for you?
I'd rather it not be there than be there. Like the 400-year-old virgin, come on.
Yeah, I mean, they're not great.
What I did like, though,
There was
is,
some effort put into them, though.
Marge has to use the bathroom. She goes to the porta potty. There's a line, it's okay, it's not great, where she says, a woman doesn't choose to go to the porta potty. It's like, yeah, they're disgusting. What I really liked was when she does go in.
Yeah.
First of all, it says there's a men's one, a ladies one, and a bearded ladies one.
Yeah.
The bearded ladies joke, not so great. Also, they don't divide porta potties by sex because they're porta potties.
That's true, it's a porta potty.
But I did love the visual of Marge's hair sticking out from the porta potty.
That was good.
That's just that's what it looks like. It's not funny, it's not a joke, but it's...
She goes in and then poof,
But it's like, this is what it would look like if Marge Simpson was in a porta potty. And
although she'd be sitting, so...
even if she is sitting, the hair would be...
Does Marge have a penis?
I think.
Are we
all
learning
right.
things?
Breaking news, folks. You guys wondering why you're still sticking with us after 31 episodes? It's because we have these huge exclusives.
discoveries.
Marge Simpson has
got
a
a dick.
penis. Just read the Playboy and you'll see for
Yeah, that's
yourself.
right. You'll see it
No,
yourself.
but it's fun when they do. I like Marge hair jokes. They've done a few.
A good Marge hair joke is good. So they walk into a hypnotist's tent. It's Sven Gali, the hypnotist, which was whatever. It was fine.
Yeah.
And he picks Homer out of the crowd to hypnotize him. There's one kind of running gag that I wanted to talk about. It's the stacked parking thing.
Yeah.
So the entire time at the circus, Homer's is getting upset about stacked parking, which is where when you pull in, then you're stuck because all the cars are going to be behind you. And then everyone, like, it's like first one in and last one out kind of parking, which is stupid.
Oh, they literally put another car in front of you. They box you in completely?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like an idiot because I don't drive. We've gone over what a bad driver I am.
This we have.
No, I didn't know what stack parking
But Homer's
was.
just complaining about it throughout this whole circus thing.
It makes sense to do it at a circus, I guess, because everybody's going out at the same time.
Right.
What if you have an emergency?
What if?
I don't like stack parking. I'm out.
I don't like it
I'm
either.
out.
We all agree with Homer. So he's kind of complaining about that. I don't know. It was just kind of like Homer needs something to complain about. This is a thing that people complain about, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't offensive.
No.
You know, if we sound like we're nitpicking, it's because we are. Compared to last week, this episode was much better.
Absolutely. So yeah, the hypnotist takes Homer from the crowd and he says, he hypnotizes him to be a 10-year-old boy. The very first thing that happens is he says, "You are now a 10-year-old boy." And Homer goes, "No, I'm not. I know you are. What am I?" And he is the annoying 10-year-old boy.
Right.
And I thought it was not really in a funny way. It's annoying when a 10-year-old does that stuff.
That's when I was starting to think, like, okay, is this Judd Apatow script? Because I could see, I know you are, but what am I? And Infinity Plus One.
Yeah.
That in 1990 was probably, I wouldn't say edgy, but relevant. Whereas now it's like, all right. So now I'm really curious. That was where I was really curious if that was what Apatow wrote.
Yeah.
What's funny is I knew the plot going in, that I knew that it was about Homer turning into a 10-year-old. I'm wondering if I did know that, if I would be confused at first, because that's our first time we've really. Because does he even say you? Well, he just says you're going to be. What
he says you're going to be a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and he just, I know you would know. It wasn't clear cut that Homer Simpson was turning into a 10-year-old.
You know why?
At that point.
It's because Homer Simpson in 2015 is always that annoying 10-year-old.
Maybe that's right. Because
but in 1990, that would have been kind of new.
Apatow claims that he wrote this for the first season to be a first season episode. He hadn't seen any season 2 episodes when he wrote this. That's what he claims.
Oh, really?
I think his memory might probably be a little foggier, and he wrote this like a little bit later, season 2, season 3.
Yeah. Keep hitting the bong, Cheech. I don't know if Judd Apatow does that.
But you're right. If this was a very early, when Homer still talked like butts. If it was that, then you're right. Then it would be much more jarring. But if for whatever reason, whether it's that, whether it's another reason, it came off as annoying and lame.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Sven-Golly. You're going to untangle this guy's noodle, and that's it. No more hypnotizing anyone.
You have my word, Chief Kangaroo.
Boing, 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 boing.
And then right before the end of the act break, Marge realizes that Homer's a 10-year-old, and the sword swallower does a sword take.
He does that's a good way of putting it.
Where he spits out swords. Yeah.
That's a really funny idea. You're at a circus. You have a character doing a spit take. It's funny for them to have the swords down their mouth and to spit them out.
Right.
The problem was the staging. It was really forced. He's just like kind of there in the background, and he has nothing to do with the scene. And it's like, why would he do a spit take when he finds out that Homer thinks he's a 10-year-old? He doesn't know these people.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
It wasn't as seamlessly weaved into the scene as it should have been.
It's a sight gag that you could do at the circus, which
and like I like the idea of a sword take, a spit take.
Yeah,
but it came off very shoehorned in. So it cuts the next act starts off with Homer at the hospital.
He's with Dr. Hibbert.
Well, there's a sign on the hospital. It says Springfield General or whatever the hospital is.
Yeah.
It says Buddy Epson died here, and I like that. And what's funny is I feel like it's funny for a hospital to brag about the celebrity that died there.
Here, yeah.
And what's funny is that the hospital, one of the biggest hospital on Staten Island where we grew up. Where several of my close family members passed because that's just where it's the hospital.
Right.
It was in the news about 10 years ago, I'd say, George Harrison. That's where he died. We have a very the hospital there, literally like a couple blocks from where I grew up, has one of the best cancer treatment centers in the country.
Right.
So Harrison was there, but it was intreatable. So he passed, and our legacy was. Do you remember this?
Yeah, the doctor who was treating him like forced George Harrison's hand while he was in the last days of his life to sign a guitar.
Yeah, he's like, can you sign my guitar? And George Harrison was probably like, because George Harrison's amazing. He was probably like, I would love to, but I'm dying. I can't move my hand.
Exactly.
So the doctor just took his hand and like signed. Yeah. It's like that's such a horrible, awful thing to do.
It's
like
that's
dark
stain on Staten Island's history.
So it's like when I saw the Buddy Epson died here, I was almost like, we should put up a sign at our hospital that just says, we forced George Harrison to sign an autograph right before he died.
Oh boy.
We love where we grew up.
Yeah. It's a great place.
I mean, it has nothing to do with where we grew up. It was just an asshole doctor, but still, it's funny.
It is funny because it's so horrible. And
Exactly.
So Homer's with Dr. Hibbert, and Dr. Hibbert's kind of checking him out and seeing what's going on with this hypnotism, and he says, "Here, drink this," and he gives Homer something to drink, and Homer spits it out and says, "This tastes terrible," and Dr. Hibbert's like, "My God, that's beer," which I thought was a funny way to show that Homer actually does think he's 10 years old.
It's great on a couple of levels. It's great because Homer is famous for loving beer. So if Homer doesn't
he loves beer?
So if Homer doesn't love beer, that's a great litmus test.
You know something's wrong.
But it's also one of those great universal everybody can relate because we've all been kids and we all like wanted to try a beer and we all tried the beer and we're like, ugh, this is awful.
Yeah.
And now I'm literally drinking
a beer right
while
now.
we're recording. I'm drinking Rebel Rouser Double IPA, a 8.5% alcohols. 8.4. It's a really strong Sam Adams and it's fucking delicious.
All right.
And it's just
if
funny.
you pass out by the end of the show, that's why.
But 20 years ago, I'd be like, ugh, gross. So I love
when
that.
you're recording your podcast 20 years ago.
So it's great for three reasons. It's great because it's one of those universal jokes so we can all relate to. It's great because it's character based. It's score high on our integrity. And it's great because it's Dr. Hibbert. And Dr. Hibbert is immune to he's just funny all the time, whether it's a 2015 or 1990 episode.
Yes.
Dr. Hibbert is hilarious.
Right. And whether it was Apatow or not, I think it's just elegant writing to just quickly establish that Homer's not faking it. Like, this is real. Like, Homer would never do that. It made me think of something that is in Avengers 2 that I will not mention because I know you haven't seen it yet.
You better not fucking say it.
But there is something in that movie that just very quickly tells you all you need to know about a certain character. And if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about.
I'm assuming, a little slight spoilers ahead, because even though I haven't seen it, I know the world fairly well. I'm assuming it's when when Vision shows up and they go, "Vision, are you really actually Jarvis?" And they give him beer and he goes, "Ew, this is gross." And they go, "It's Jarvis." I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Off air. Wait, are you serious?
I know.
Oh, okay. Because the character I was talking about, it was the Vision.
Who else did that?
All right.
What's Dinner Theater Strong? I wrote down I really like that line.
Yeah, so Hibbert then says, "My God, this hypnosis is strong. Dinner theater strong."
Yeah,
that was funny too.
And again, that's like, it's funny because that's, hypnosis is a funny hypnosis joke, but it's Hibbert's delivery.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons Dr. Hibbert has still been consistently funny, it's not just the writing. I mean, he's been lucky that they've written him mostly great Dr. Hibbert type lines, even in the post-classic, but Harry Shearer nails it every time.
Definitely.
And Dinner Theater Strong. It was like laugh out loud.
I always
funny.
laugh at Dr. Hibbert's like, "My God," like that kind of cadence.
Gigantism.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank the knife.
And others.
Hibbert.
This was the point in my notes where I wrote down there's an actual ABC plot here, and that's so great because you don't usually see that, especially in this season.
Well, not an A plot, B plot, C plot.
No,
plot
an A to B to C that progresses logically.
We use very scientific terminology here. We just don't want. We want you guys to keep up.
Yeah. So then it's back. The Simpsons are back home, and here's something I don't think we'd ever seen before. Homer is playing with Santa's little helper because he's a 10-year-old kid and he's like excited to play with the dog.
Right.
And not only was that great because it's this thing like, how have you never seen this before? It was also showing that he is actually a 10-year-old, and just the animation of it I thought was fantastic.
The animation was awesome. So he's doing the thing where you throw the tennis ball, but you don't really throw it, which we've all done with our dogs.
Yep.
And what's funny is I fell for it the first time, where he throws it.
You actually ran up to the screen. You're like,
where's the ball? Where's the ball? No, he throws the ball, and then suddenly he has the ball again. I was like, wait, has he got a second ball? Like, this is, I'm talking like split second. This is my thought process. But, it took me that extra beat where I was just like, oh, I see, he's doing the thing.
Yeah.
So the animation was so good, and then he does it over and over, and now I know what he's doing.
Right.
But it was such a fun, I don't think I've ever seen such a universal, something we've all done. We throw the tennis ball and we pretend and it's still in our hand.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually seen it animated before. Even if I don't even know if I've seen it filmed in live action, but I've never seen it animated. And it was such a fun thing to see because if you watch it, I wish we would watch it over and over a couple of times. But he throws it, and they're not cheating. They never just make it disappear from his hand.
Right.
But it was fun.
He actually hides it.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is, I've done it with my dog, tons and tons of times, but I don't think I've ever watched somebody else do it. So it is kind of it was just really fun visual.
Yeah.
And I think it was fun because it looked cool, but it also, there's that part of you that's watching it and, totally, just in on it and just, you relate to it.
Yep.
And it really made a difference. And like you said, it's great that it actually was a really economical way of going, hey, look, he's a 10-year-old. Because you're right.
Definitely.
I don't think in 26 seasons, I'm not sure Homer really ever played. We've seen Bart play with Santa's Little Helper a few times.
Because Bart is the 10-year-old,
Yeah.
so then it makes sense that Homer would be doing it. Good
although
stuff.
it
Well
is
animated.
It's funny to think, though, because, adults play. I would like to think that if I was a few years older, I'd still be playing with my dog. My dog's dead.
Well, yeah.
So I'm not playing with him anymore.
That's a downer.
But I miss him. But I'm not playing with. But I'd like to think that adults also play with their dog. But
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is I never thought of it as a kid thing to do to play with your dog. I always thought it was a dog owner thing
it's
to do.
the enthusiasm with
Exactly,
which he plays for them.
but it was nice to see. So,
Yeah.
but and then not only do they do a great job of saying look, Homer's 10 years old, he's playing with his dog, and it's a sweet moment,
Yeah.
because he's connecting these two characters that have been in every scene together for years and never had this kind of. I know I'm talking a little too much about Santa's Little Helper here,
Yeah.
but they did. They had this rapport they'd never had before. But it ends with a great joke.
What did it end with?
Where he fakes it again, and then Santa's Little Helper just gets pissed off and attacks him.
Oh,
and
I
bites him.
forgot about that.
And that was
Yeah.
great. And that was a great way to cap it.
Yes, definitely. That is good, even though I forgot about it. Yeah, if you haven't watched the episode and you've made it this far, you really should watch this episode. This was a good one.
Yeah, this wasn't bad.
And I was worried it was going to take a weird turn when they show. So Homer, since he thinks he's 10 years old, he sleeps in Bart's room because he and Bart are kind of palling around. It is called Bart's New Friend. So Marge is sleeping alone, and she's like, "Oh, I miss my husband. What am I going to do?" And she's in bed, and it's late, and she kind of reaches into the nightstand, and she takes out a cylindrical box.
Yeah.
And we were like,
It's
what are we
be
going
a
to do
dildo.
here?
They're gonna make a dildo
But
joke.
she pulls out a ball of yarn and knitting needles. So
Yeah.
I was like, thanks for that.
Well, here's the thing. So I was thinking.
I mean, you're
about-
obviously supposed to think that it is
Right.
a sexual thing.
Well, this is what I was thinking about that. There's plenty of jokes like that in the classic era where when you're a kid you don't get it.
Right.
If you're in the demographic we are, if you're in your early 30s or late 20s where you grew up watching the show as a kid,
Yeah.
and then you went watching it later on, there were a lot of jokes you didn't get as a kid. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if they put that joke in an early seasons, which I could see them doing, where you go, you just never thought twice about it. You didn't even consider it a joke. You're just like, whatever. And then later on you go, oh, that's amazing. I never realized that was a dildo joke.
Right.
So I'm wondering.
I don't know if they ever had dildo jokes before.
No. So that's what I'm wondering is if they did something like that. So if it was a dildo joke now or even, so did you like the fact that they were teasing there was a dildo? Or do you think that even that was a little bit much?
I thought it was fine because it kind of ties into the later in the episode when the hypnotist undoes Homer's hypnotism and Marge, he's like, "Oh, Marge, is there anything else you want me to change about him?" And Marge basically just wants him to cuddle after they are intimate. And at the end, that's exactly what happens.
So what I was wondering was if it was a dirty joke. I feel like we sometimes we're too hard on dirty jokes in this when we cover new episodes because we say that's not classic Simpsons. That's that's too dark. That's too much. That's too dirty.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's always been there, and now that we're old enough to see it for the first time, we're a little harder on it than when we realize in retrospect what the joke was.
Right.
So that's what made me think when I saw this is I wonder if this joke was. I don't know, but it seems like we didn't actually mind the joke at all. So I guess my point's moot.
It is. All right.
So
there you go.
But if it was a straight up dildo joke, would you go, "Oh, this is too much"?
Yes, I probably would have.
Okay. I don't think they would do one, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, just real quick.
I was gonna say before that scene, what did you think of? Where Marge makes a reference to Homer's thumb falling off.
Oh,
it's this is just like the time your thumb fell off, and then Homer's thumb is missing, and they're like, oh my god, and he's like, just kidding. He's doing another one of those 10-year-old gags. He's like, look, I'm doing my thumb. I'm doing it for you right now.
Yeah. Like I got your thumb.
The
kind of
audience
thing.
does not know
They
what
have
I'm
no
doing.
idea. Yeah.
But I'm doing the got your which is great because I don't know how to do it right. So I'm pretty much just rubbing my hands
Oh
together.
my God, Jack! Where's your thumb?
Anyway, but the joke is then his thumb does fall off, but it just falls off with
that
no
was-
blood or anything.
That was way too much. It was not.
It was
great.
corny. I didn't like it.
Yeah. So then Homer kind of goes to school with Bart, and there's a couple of funny Milhouse things where Milhouse they're gonna play like a game of tag where you have to go under the person's leg.
Yeah,
which I've never heard of.
I've heard of TV tag. I've heard of freeze tag.
Yeah, and Milhouse says, "Oh, this was the wrong day to wear culottes," and he's wearing culottes.
Yeah.
And someone says every day is the wrong day to wear culottes,
Right.
which is funny.
Classic Milhouse.
And then they're like, "Oh, can Homer play?" And they're like, "Well, if you let Milhouse play, you have to let him play." And Milhouse is like, "Yes, again, I'm the lower bound."
Yeah,
I thought that was funny that Milhouse.
It was a little on the nose.
Milhouse is proud of being the worst. But then one of the absolute best things of the episode, Skinner and Chalmers are looking through the Springfield Elementary, I guess, bylaws or something, to see if Homer can even be at the school. And Chalmers is like, "Oh, look at this page." And Skinner turns to it and he's like, "Oh, that's the page I put my doodles. It's called Bumble and Grumble." And it's clearly Skinner and Chalmers.
Yeah, it's straight up just him drawing that.
Right, like a comic. And Skinner's... Do you remember the exact line?
So Skinner says, he's like, well, Bumble's always screwing up and Grumble's always yelling at Bumble, but secretly Gumble thinks of Bumble as like a son, something like that.
And Chalmers just goes, "No, he doesn't."
Yeah. I keep talking about why a joke worked. Here's why it worked on two levels, at least two. One, Chalmers is with Willie and Dr. Hibbert in that, for the most part, he's immune to the post-classic writing in that everything he says is funny, even when they change styles.
Yeah.
So Chalmers his delivery is always very funny. And what's great is that Chalmers immediately, they don't dumb down the joke. Chalmers immediately realizes that Grumble and Bumble is him and Skinner.
Right.
He never even says so.
They don't need to.
They just cut to, we know that Chalmers realizes it's him and just goes, "No, he doesn't."
Yeah, right.
It was,
It's
the
so good.
line delivery, everything, it was gangbusters.
Everything about it was great. And we really liked it a lot. Then there's a scene of Homer and Bart, kind of like slumber party style, talking while they're supposed to be sleeping. I thought it was kind of funny. I'm curious to see if you liked it, where Bart is going to prank Homer, so he sticks pencils in his nostrils and a tennis ball in his mouth so he can't breathe.
Yeah.
And Homer wakes up and spits all the stuff out and immediately just punches Bart in the face.
I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
I actually thought it was very funny because it was so quick and well animated.
That's what I was gonna say. The execution was perfect. The pacing and the animation was great. The pencils poke Bart in the forehead, and it's like one of those "ooh, that must have hurt," and then to follow it up with the punch in the face was perfect.
Yeah.
It was a 1, 2, 3, bam, wham, bam, thank
Wham,
you, ma'am.
bam.
You talking about how they used the beard test, and there was a lot of economical ways. The beard test, the dog, playing with the dog. There's a lot of economical ways of getting a point across, something the show doesn't seem to be able to do anymore.
No.
And almost all of the Bart-Homer bonding beats nailed this. They were really just really quick, not drawn out, no extra beats, all the stuff we've been complaining about for weeks now.
Yeah.
So there's what you just said with the pencils in the head. There was also, they're playing with the super soakers, which do kids still play with actual super soakers? I hope so.
They got bigger and bigger until they were super soaker, assault rifles. They were nuts.
Super soaker IEDs.
Super soaker drones. Actually, they probably do have those.
That's kind of awesome. I wish I had a super soaker drone.
That would be kind of cool.
But anyway, I love the visual, again, the animation of them jamming the super soakers
into
up
each
their
other's noses and just spraying. I thought that was so great.
That was just fun to watch. It looks like, it was one of those things where it looks fun to do if you're a kid, but in real life, obviously, it would never work.
Right.
But because it's a cartoon, it does. It's like one of those, hey, what can we do as a cartoon, but it's still realistic, but we can only do what you can't do with live action.
Yeah, exactly. That's
There's
perfect.
that classic, season 1 did it to some extent, but for the most part, you could do a season 1 episode as live action. The classic years, the season 3 through 7, 8, they were the ones where it wasn't ridiculous to completely ridiculous.
It wasn't unbelievable,
but you couldn't really pull it off live action.
Exactly.
It was of its own kind, and that's what made it so unique.
Yes.
And this really, I don't think this. I'm not going to credit this to Judd Apatow. It was really more the animators. Maybe he wrote the scene, maybe he didn't. But it was nice. I don't know if it was. I don't think it's because it was a spec script from 1990. Maybe it was because Judd Apatow's a talented writer. But a lot of the pros of this episode were that it was called. It was it made me nostalgic because it was doing things the right way, like the classic years did. I don't think it was like a classic episode, but the thing they had in common was that they were doing jokes right.
Yes, I agree with you.
So so they had that. They had the super soakers up the nose, and then also the graffiti was great.
Yes,
so
that was great.
And what I want to talk about that is because we mentioned it on a previous episode.
Right. So Bart does El Bardo was here, and it's extremely quick. But Homer does
El Homo 2.
El Homo 2, yeah. And we talked.
Or just maybe even Homo 2.
Right. I forget which episode it was, but we talked.
It was with Bryce because I think it was the one with
it was Large Marge.
It was Large Marge
for sure. Yeah. There was like a weird scene where Homer wrote El Homo. Oh, if Bart can be El Bardo, I can be El Homo. And like, there's a weird conversation he has with Lisa, and he's like panics and like
she's like
tries to erase it.
Are you a homo? Like it says El Homo.
Right.
Do you realize that? And he has gay panic.
That was the wrong way to do that. This was the right way, where it's very, very quick. We don't need to see Homer's reaction. The joke is that Homer's doing it, and like, oh, that means something other than what Homer thinks it means.
The joke is the El Barto version of Homer is homo, and homo is funny because it sounds
right because Homer doesn't understand the connotation, like what it actually means.
It's the exact same joke as Large Marge, but they did it the right way. And we covered this episode with Bryce. Bryce watched it, Large Marge, and he even said we talked at length about how the right way to do this. And what we speculated, what we said, is exactly how they do it now, which is funny because we were watching this episode with Bryce. He happened to be at my at Wii Studios when we watched, and he was just like, "Holy shit, this is exactly what we said on the show."
Yeah, right.
So it
should have been.
It's amazing. It's almost as if somebody was taking our notes and applying them to the show. And
I think that's exactly what happened.
I think that's what happened. I think Judd Apatow traveled back in time, and well, I've said too much.
I don't remember if the graffiti was during it, but there was a montage of Homer and Bart like doing kid stuff. And what was so great about it, almost nostalgic, was that it did not use just a pop song like all of the montages we've ever seen doing these later season episodes.
They didn't pick like Cats in the Cradle or some bullshit song that's tangentially related.
It was a piece of original Simpsons music, which we've heard before in classic episodes. I can't place
it was very Alf Clausen-esque.
Like we feel like we've seen a similar. Maybe it was when they were building the soapbox derby racer.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if it was the exact same.
No, it was. We've heard that music on the show. I just can't remember what episodes it's been in, and I just loved it. It
was very sentimental and it was very nice. Yeah, and you're right too, because not only. What I don't like about the when they do a montage with the rock song and they use it for 8 seconds and then cut and it's jarring.
Yeah.
It's too on the nose.
Right.
Whereas you're right. This music, the whole point of a lot of music scores is to heighten the emotion. And you're right. This was like selling like, look, this is a bonding experience. This isn't, even though these are gag. It's not hostile gags to each other.
Right.
They're not
gag,
they're
but
not
also
competing.
character and
they're
advancing
bonding.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're using the music to sell that. Again, they just did it right. And I don't think this is because of Judd Apatow or because the episode is 25 years old. It seemed to maybe his script inspired everybody on board to like just try a little harder. I don't know.
I don't know. But just going real quick through a bunch of things that we liked. Homer actually plays saxophone with Lisa, and they play Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great, sweet moment, and it was also funny because Homer was like, do, 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 and it was like not in an annoying way.
And
it was
a bit
funny.
of a callback, because that's the song. Is that what she played when Bleeding Gums died? I think so.
I don't think so. She
played
Jazz Man song. Yeah.
She played Jerry Rafferty at some point. I don't remember when. Anyway, maybe it was. I think it might have been Lisa Sachs.
Okay, so then Chief Wiggum calls and says they got Svengali, the hypnotist, because they used the anti-hypnosis squad, which I thought was great. It was a SWAT team who just had blindfolds on, and they were like walking around, trying to feel around where they were. That was very funny.
And that's another great thing is, especially compared to last episode where the structure is all over the place. They didn't really have another beat, which maybe it would have been nice if they did, but they had this second quote-unquote B plot where Homer's stuck this way until they find this hypnosis guy who's on the run. He's on the lam. So, like, that gives you a clear goal. Like, the goals do so much for a story. It's like, look, we are stuck this way until we find him. So it would have been nice if there was another beat or two where they were actually looking for him. But just the fact that that's what drives the rest of the episode forward from this point is it wasn't shoehorned in, it wasn't out of nowhere, it wasn't Web of Spider-Man, it wasn't Grufik this or
Burns of
old Dracula fingers that. It was a clear consequence of something that happened earlier. It's like, look, we had to find this guy. Okay,
Right.
we found it. It would have been nice to have another beat, but look,
Well, they even had it set up when Hibbert earlier had said the rules of hypnotism are inflexible,
exactly,
which was
exactly.
funny, and it was a good way to establish this.
it's very clear cut and saying, look, this has to happen, so this happens. So I like that they were like, oh, so the next inciting incident, the next incident to push Act 3 forward was very much tied into the entire plot, where it's like, all right, we found the guy.
Yeah.
And that anti-hypnosis squad was amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. So the police bring him to the Simpson house. There was a quick gag, and then another gag I liked even more, where they let the hypnotist out, and he says kangaroo to Chief Wiggum, and Chief Wiggum starts acting like a kangaroo.
They established earlier, too, that he's very susceptible to hypnotism, which makes sense because he's an idiot.
When they were first trying to catch him, he said something to him, and then he started taking off his pants. Because he was hypnotized.
Which was, whatever. But the kangaroo thing was fun.
But he says kangaroo, and he starts hopping up the stairs like a kangaroo. And then, very quick animation thing, when you see Wiggum next, he has Maggie in his pouch.
And
for
they
all
never,
intents and
and he's the
purposes.
best part. They never
call
explicitly-
attention to
they
it.
Never.
Never.
You know, I'm a kangaroo. I got Maggie.
Yeah,
in my
yeah, yeah.
I'm flashing my stroke.
Perfect,
Yeah,
perfect,
no, it
perfect,
was- it
perfect,
was just-
perfect.
That's how you do it. You
Yes.
don't have to put big neon arrows.
Don't be like, hey, here was a joke. Did you see this joke? We're very funny. We made this
You
joke.
don't need that.
Don't need it at all.
We'll pick up on it. We're smart guys.
Yeah, well, we are.
I mean,
Well,
and
we're
when
not that smart.
I'm saying I'm saying Simpsons fans. We know.
Well, we fans are very smart. We know that.
we
What's up?
WEE fans.
Shout out to all my Wii fans out there, who I assume is everybody. Wicka wicka.
Wear your helmets.
And Homer is gone because he and Bart went to Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Yeah.
I loved this.
Yeah?
That they went to Itchy and Scratchy Land. Yes.
So I'm assuming
I thought it looked excellent. The animation was terrific.
clearly this wasn't a Judd Apatow original. Maybe
it was.
a rewrite. No, Itchy and Scratchy Land was not around in season
No, no,
1.
oh, I know it wasn't, but maybe he also thought of an Itchy and Scratchy
independently.
Land.
Yeah, you're right. That's
Or
a good point.
maybe they just finally had some sense, and he had some other amusement park, and they were like, "Hey, we've already established Itchy and Scratchy Land as a thing.
You're right.
Let's just do that."
And it also ties into this is a season 26 episode, which we've done not many season 25, season 26.
Yeah.
But these very, very most recent ones do seem to be more meta and more not just calling back to Simpsons, but calling back to the things they know Simpsons fans will pick up on.
Yes.
Because it has started its own complete subculture.
Yes.
And
with weird podcasts all about it.
exactly, and trivia nights. So there seems to be in these very most recent seasons more references that they know are catering to that specific audience, us,
Yeah, right.
and our listeners.
Here's an interesting thing, though. This episode aired the week after The Man Who Came to Be Dinner, which, if you remember, they also went to amusement park, and it wasn't Itchy and Scratchy Land. I think it was like some lame-ish Disney parody.
Yeah, and we gave it a lot of shit for not being
Itchy and Scratchy Land. Well, look what they did. They listened to us.
That's funny. Yeah, you're right.
Even though this episode aired before our episode about that episode came out.
And it was Itchy and Scratchy Land. They didn't really do much with it. They were in there was a sign that said Tortureland, which was a reference to the actual Itchy and Scratchy Land. But that was about it. There wasn't, there were no Itchy and Scratchy robots or Bort license plates. But
no, I wouldn't have liked it if there were. I just liked that it was.
It's grounded. It's like going to the Quickie Mart as opposed to 7-Eleven.
Right. It's part of this world that we've been with for 26 years. It makes sense that they would go there.
But they do an extended gag related to Itchy and Scratchy Land, and it's the 4D ride, which is a reference to.
It looks. I haven't been on the Simpsons ride personally, but it's like that same kind of thing.
Where is that? Universal Studios?
It's in Universal Orlando, where you're sitting in the thing and you're. I think that maybe it's 3D. I don't know. You may or may not have glasses on, and you kind of move with the room, and you're watching a video screen where you're like traveling over things, which is what they do. They kind of go through Springfield.
And it's an extended gag. It goes on for about a minute.
It is. It looked fantastic. I thought it looked really great.
Animation-wise, it was very high tech. I think it was one of those things that they probably couldn't have done hand drawn. It was more computer generated.
Definitely.
It was looked good. It was funny.
It was very
the
funny.
bridge
gag
gag was great, where they're panning across the bridge, and then suddenly the cars are falling off the bridge, and then it goes to the sign that says "Bridge to be completed."
You see through a window, Krusty is drawing Itchy and Scratchy, and he goes, "I do the show all by myself."
Yeah.
That was funny.
And also, it was fun to watch it. It's like, how do you sell that this is the ride? They show the silhouettes of everybody sitting and hanging in the ride.
Yes, you see Bart, and you see Homer, and you also see the Mystery Science Theater 3000 robots, which I liked.
And that's a great one of those background gags where you notice it and you appreciate it.
Not called attention to it at all.
And the reason to call attention to it is one of the reasons a call attention to type thing is lame is besides wasting our time, it's like, you don't want to spell out the joke.
Right.
Whereas, look, if you'd never seen Mystery Science Theater, you're not going to be
not gonna
turned off
notice
by it. Yeah,
it.
you're not going to go, what's going on?
Why is there
You
a gumball machine
Yeah, you
in
don't
the
even
front
think
row?
about it. Yeah. But if you do love Mystery Science Theater, which we do,
Right, you'll see it, and
then
you'll be
you
like,
get
"Ah,
an extra laugh. And then Bryce noticed on the left-hand side, he might have been Mom from Futurama.
Sort of. I think it looked kind of like Dr. Hibbert's wife. Like,
That seems even more obscure than a show for a character from a different show.
yeah. I don't know, but whoever it was.
But that whole sequence was fun.
Yeah, it was, and it was great. It went through Springfield, and it landed back at Itchy and Scratchy Land, and then they get off the ride, and there's a ticket taker there to say, like, well, you went back to the park, so you have to pay again.
and the delivery was great. I don't know if it was Azaria or whoever, but the delivery was great, and the line is great. The fact that you came back to the park, you have to pay admission again.
I thought that was really funny.
There's some other background jokes, in Itchy and Scratchy Land. There was like a $6 sliced pizza, which I guess is this parody of, if you're in New York, these dollar sliced pizzas have proliferated everywhere.
Yeah.
So I guess the joke is, look at this gimmick we have, $6. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was one I found even funnier, which was Penny Arcade, 75 cents.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Which, again, is a joke they did with the Pooh's Penny Candy in season 4 or whatever.
This is in the background. It's fine. If
Exactly.
you didn't see it, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
If you did, you'd appreciate it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't have much else to say. They finally get Homer, and he becomes unhypnotized. And I didn't like it when it was happening in the beginning of the episode, but when he becomes unhypnotized, he is immediately ranting about stacked parking again, like he was at the circus. I actually liked that.
Which 2 weeks ago we talked about what he liked when in the Halloween episode Bart went into a coma and he was yelling "Cowa," and then he went into a coma and then he came out and said "Bunga."
It's the same joke, but for some reason it worked here.
Yeah, it's fun. At least for me. Even if it's not a joke, it just ties the two story threads together a little bit better.
Yeah. And the strangest thing about this episode, I think, is that it was a season 26 episode that ended very sweetly and, it was touching. Homer is now Bart's father again, but he comes up and Bart is eating lasagna in bed and watching TV, and the whole lasagna thing was something they had talked about when Homer was 10 years old. So he's like, oh, I talked with a friend once about that, and it was sweet.
I love the idea that he had his time with Bart isn't completely forgotten. He thinks it was a childhood friend. I didn't think that was going to happen as it was happening.
Yeah.
But once he said that, it's like, oh, that's how he remembers the relationship. Yeah.
Exactly.
And everything is grounded. Everything made sense in the world of this silly plot.
Right.
That's all we ask. We don't mind silly plots or ridiculous stuff.
No, just as long as it ties together and makes sense.
We wouldn't have minded them the episode before going to another planet and traveling this other planet if they made it make sense. Harder.
Yeah.
But if they made it grounded and made everything work within its own world, we would have been fine with it.
Which we talked about at length in that episode. Bart makes a crack at Homer that maybe he sat on his friend who he was trying to remember, and Homer starts strangling Bart, and
he goes to strangle him.
He's like, I don't know if I can strangle you, and instead they hug.
Yeah. Talk about irony.
That should have been last week's episode.
The reason we even watched this episode was because last week it came up somehow in conversation. I forget. It's like, oh, we should check out that Judd Apatow episode.
Yeah.
So that's why we did it this week. It was out of that conversation, and one of our biggest complaints was they couldn't find
episode about strangling,
and they couldn't figure out how to wrap that strangling arc.
Yeah.
And this episode randomly, talk about fucking irony. This episode did what that episode should have done. How do you end an idea? How do you end an episode about strangling where really Homer shouldn't strangle Bart anymore? How do you make that work? Yeah, it's not quite status quo, but it's not, it still fits within the show.
Yeah.
And it was the idea of him just going to strangle him, but can't quite seem to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And then to transition, which we said last week, to the idea that strangling could be his form of a hug.
Right.
It's not exactly what we said, but they turned the strangle into a hug.
Yes. And it worked. It totally worked.
Perfect. It was
great.
It was perfect. It was sentimental, but it wasn't too much. It wasn't fucking. It wasn't a tearjerker. It was perfectly executed.
Agreed.
Here's what I do want to mention, because we seem to be pretty up on this episode. Here's something I wish I would have done a little bit more. So, yes, the episode is called Bart's New Friend, and the A plot of this episode is Homer becomes a 10-year-old, so he and Bart find a bond they never had before. I like that. I like the idea of a father and a son. It takes the father becoming a child to bond with the son. It's been done before. 18 again, and
It was 17 again.
17.
Get your Zac Efron movies right, Jack.
No, 18 again with George Burns. And,
Oh, I never saw that one. I only watched the Zac Efron movies.
I'm talking about George Burns and Kirk Cameron. What podcast do you think this is? Zac Efron. I don't reference anything before 1982.
That's true. That is true.
George Burns and Kirk Cameron, and then there's the other one with Judge Reinhold and Kevin
Vice versa.
Arnold. Vice versa.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you have to become when you're a workaholic dad, which those movies, or at least the Judge Reinhold one was.
Yeah.
When you're a
Vice
workaholic
versa.
dad, you have to remember what it's like to be a kid again, to bond with your kid. So it's not the oldest plot, but whatever. It's a nice plot to do in a family sitcom.
Yeah, it
so-
tread ground of Homer and Bart's relationship, but that's fine.
Right, and I like
it did
that.
it a new way.
But and then they do one scene with Lisa, which fine. If you only have time for one scene, that's fine.
I liked it. It was a good scene.
But the idea, the episode really, the emotional core is him and Bart, but the plot, the story core is he turned into a 10-year-old boy. That's a pretty big deal. So
Yeah.
my point is, I feel like I really wish we could have seen a little bit more interaction with Marge and how Marge is dealing with this, because that's almost a bigger deal than your dad becoming a 10-year-old boy is your husband becoming a 10-year-old boy. We do have
True.
that one bedroom scene where she almost pulls out a dildo.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have seen at least, just like we got one scene with Lisa, one scene with what is the dynamic between Marge and 10-year-old Homer. It doesn't
That's a
have
good
to be.
point.
It doesn't have to be a B plot. Like the B plot could have been, how does Homer interact with everybody else? I would
Yeah.
like to have seen a Grandpa scene. How
Like-
does Grandpa, how
Right.
like parents seem to become better grandparents. Like when they're older and they have less stress, they kind of become better with kids than they were with you. That would have been cool if like Grandpa was suddenly a great grandpa. Although we already got a flashback where he was a good dad. So whatever.
Yeah,
but
the Marge
more
thing,
importantly, Marge. Yeah.
If there had been like a scene where Homer needed to be an adult and Marge like needed him to do something and he was a kid, that could have worked.
Exactly. And
I didn't think the episode suffered not having that.
I
though.
do think it suffered a little bit. It would have been better with it, especially because Marge is the arc almost is Marge getting him back and with the cops and everything. It's like Marge was the one that really needed him to come back, and because of that, the audience needs him back. Otherwise, the audience would be like, "Oh man, that's kind of a bummer that he never became. He lost his relationship with Bart. Yeah, they remember it, and he doesn't strangle him now." But if the happy ending is he becomes an adult again, then we should have seen one scene where Marge really needs her husband back, and then that way when the
reconnect
SWAT team,
and cuddle.
the blind SWAT team does find him back and they reconnect. It's stronger. Again, like I'm not saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
It didn't.
I don't think the episode needed that, but yes, it would have been nice. I agree.
See, that's where it's a small disagreement, but I do think it needed it. I don't think it hurt so much that it didn't have it. If that makes sense.
Fair enough.
So then it ends real quick with a coda. It zooms in on the police station. There's a really funny, you just hear the end of a conversation between Lou and Eddie. And then it zooms into the plastic prison.
Yeah, it goes
X-Men.
down and it's like the X-Men plastic prison that they keep Magneto in and like all of the Fox X-Men movies. And Svengali is being held there and Chief Wiggum is
Because
playing chess with
plastic
him.
obviously is the antithesis to hypnotist.
Yeah, you can't hypnotize plastic.
The antithesis to hypnotist.
The antithesis.
The antithesis.
So he's in there and he has tricked Chief Wiggum, hypnotized him in fact. He's not a tricknotist, he's a hypnotist. He's hypnotized him into thinking that Chief Wiggum is Svengali, and he kind of just walks out and he's like, oh, maybe I'll see you tomorrow. I might be a little late. And he's escaping and he leaves. And then out of nowhere, Loki just appears.
Yeah, and what's
Cut
weird,
to black.
Yeah, and it's not the Loki from the movies. He's a much burlier version of Loki.
Like the Loki of myth.
Yeah, even though it's clearly the movie Loki,
Right.
which is they're combining.
Combining franchises.
The MCU, which would be great in real life.
Right.
And I didn't mind the Wiggum stuff. It was a little tacked on. But the Loki was, as much as I love Loki references and Loki himself.
Right.
It's just kind of not a downer in that it was emotionally downing, but the episode was doing so well, and then it kind of fell flat.
It's
at the end.
definitely a flat note to end the episode on. But what I thought was most amazing was that Judd Apatow predicted this stuff happening and was able to write about it in 1990.
You got the plastic
crazy.
prison down and everything. It was really.
He's like, obviously, if they make a film, Magneto would be in a plastic prison.
He just couldn't. He just
And
didn't have
Loki.
the foresight to realize that Marvel, the rights would be split up between.
Right, that Fox would be
Yeah.
the X-Men and Marvel
Nobody's
would have everything
perfect.
else.
Sorry, Judd. Maybe next time.
Homer, can't you sleep with Mom?
I'd be too nervous. Have you noticed that she's kinda hot?
Gross, weird, complicated. Go to sleep.
So that's it, I think, for this episode. I think we are ready to rank it, which we do on our 4-factor test. The humor,
Zeros across the board.
Zeros across the board, new worst episode ever. No, we're going to look at the humor, the integrity, the production, and the originality of the episode. We've talked about how we do this multiple times, so we're going to skip right through it.
You know what we're doing.
And let's just get right to it. The humor of this episode. What do you got, Jack? I'm interested to hear what you say.
Ooh,
It's 0 to 5, remember.
I'm wavering between 3 and 3.5. It was a funny episode, but it wasn't a very funny episode. It was refreshing compared to the crap we've seen
Definitely.
in the most recent episodes. I definitely think it was funnier than The Book Job, which was the last episode and one of the few episodes that we seem to have liked more than we hated.
Yeah, well, we like that for a lot of reasons, not so much because of the humor. But I just to give you a base of reference, I'm going 3.5.
I'll go 3.5.
And I was tempted to go 4, actually. I think this is very funny.
I was
grumble and bumble alone.
It crossed my mind to go 4, but that's us getting too excited because it's been so nice to see something. There really wasn't that many.
I don't know. I laughed a lot, but
I mean, 4 is what I would give a weaker humor on a classic era. I don't know if I could give this a 4, but 3.5.
All right, the integrity of this episode. I think it's pretty high. This was a great episode for the characters being themselves.
There was really
no one was out of character.
The closest thing to jerk-ass Homer was workaholic Homer, which is very relatable.
I'm going 4 on this one.
I'll go 4.
This one, if you don't like new Simpsons, you're probably gonna like this episode. Okay, production of this episode. Again, I'm gonna go pretty high on this one because there were a lot of things that were well animated. That whole ride, the Santa's Little Helper thing.
You're right.
A third thing we talked about that I don't remember.
and the rest. TV set, Maggie, pets.
Yeah, I'm going 4 on this too. I thought the episode looked fantastic.
I'm torn between 3.5 and 4. I don't know. I need some time to think, but either 3.5 or 4.
You don't have any time. You're gonna decide now. Okay.
I'm leaning towards 3.5.
The originality of this episode. Again, I'm gonna give it high marks. I think I'll probably go with 3.5. I think on this one. But all
right. So it was certainly an original idea. It was a nice idea.
It was.
Our originality category is also the structure, how well they executed the idea. And again, I think they did a pretty good job. I'm going to take a little points off, like a 0.5 off for not having an extra Marge scene.
Yeah.
The safety inspector opening was a little unnecessary.
You're talking me into going higher. I'm going 4 actually.
I'm going to go 3.5.
I'm going 4.
All right. So I was a little conservative on this episode because I'm a little concerned that we're just so happy to see something. It was just such a fresh of breath air.
It was a fresh of breath air.
It was such a breath of fresh air.
Looks like when it waters your mouth.
Is breath of fresh air the right word?
Yes, a breath of fresh air.
That doesn't sound right coming out my mouth.
Hey,
breath of fresh air.
Smooth move, X-Lax.
That's not a phrase.
It certainly is.
Anyway, this was a breath of fresh air, so I'm a little worried that we're grading it too high. So I was purposely a little conservative. I gave him some 3.5s where maybe it could have gotten 4s. But either way, by far
our new best episode ever.
Yeah.
And I think that is where it belongs. So this is better than Pokemon. It's actually better than The Principal and the Pauper, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which we didn't really rank, but we kind of did that as an honorable mention. Maybe we should put it in the rankings.
If it's no longer the best, then it deserves to be put into the regular rotation.
I think we might do that. So this is the new best.
Wow, that's huge because even though this show's called Worst Episode Ever, and that's what we're looking for, we've had 4 holders of that title, whereas Pokemon has pretty much been the uncontested least worst episode ever.
Yeah, for a long
besides
time.
Principal and the Pauper, our honorable mention.
Yeah.
Since episode 6.
That was episode 6. Yeah.
So this is 24 episodes since we found, and this destroyed it.
It's way higher. Yeah.
It's gonna be tough to top this one.
That's great. I can't wait to find more episodes that are this good.
I hope
think
there's
they're out
more.
there.
And again,
please suggest good episodes.
I want
if
to
you have
thank
them.
Judd Apatow, but I also don't want us to seem like look, we actually saw 40-Year-Old Virgin together.
We did
the first time, and we didn't know what to think when going in, and we were like, whoa, what is this movie? This is great.
Yeah.
That being said, and we love Freaks and Geeks and Undeclared.
We're fans, yeah.
But his most recent movies have been kind of or whatever.
I never even saw this as 40.
There was
20 people was
both
hit or miss.
I'm not I like Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
I'm not
we're not Judd Apatow fanboys.
Right, exactly.
We're fans.
Exactly. So we don't want to give that impression.
Yeah. I don't think it had. Well, I mean, he wrote the episode, so it has something to do with it.
And he had a lot to. I'd say he had a lot to do with it, but he certainly didn't have everything to do with it. It was rewritten the same way all of the episodes are. Same staff, same showrunner, Al Jean. So every credit where credit's due. This episode aired 3 months ago. That's kind of amazing.
That they can do something this good.
Maybe
yeah.
our fantasy of a season 27 comeback where the show suddenly becomes as good as it was in season 7.
I, fingers crossed, would love season 27 to just blow season 6 out of the water.
Yeah, just
as, like the best season ever.
Where like 100 years from now, this college course is going. There was this show that was really good its first 8 years, terrible for the next 20, and then suddenly became the greatest. It's like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, where all of like humanity was raised another level by.
Oh yeah.
So maybe season 27.
Season 27, the Wild Stallions.
It was looking grim. Still probably not going to happen, but a slight chance it might.
There's a chance if they unearth some old scripts from other.
You're saying
writers.
There's a chance.
That's right. So that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. If you have an episode you'd like to suggest, a good, bad, whatever you want to do, just suggest any episode. You can do that on our website, wepodcast.com, and you can also get our Facebook, our Twitter. We do a lot of fun things there. I've been tweeting. I don't even know if you know this, Jack. Every Thursday is like Throwback Thursday. So
I've heard about that.
I usually tweet out on Thursdays. The Tibbet.
Hashtag Tibbet.
I tweet out old Simpsons commercials.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
It's
not that I don't follow you on Twitter.
No.
It's that
it's a little rude.
I have not been using my Twitter as much as I should be. But I will. I'm at Jackie No Breaks.
Yes, and I'm at Then Dan Says, but I also don't really use my personal Twitter. I usually just tweet from the Worst Episode Ever account.
Oh, that's what you're talking. Oh, I should follow that too.
Yeah. You'll follow all
I should
of them.
use Twitter.
You should use Twitter.
I should get a smartphone.
You probably should. It's 2015, but you'll be looking for Wi-Fi everywhere.
Well, Judd Apatow wasn't using a smartphone, and
look how far he got. That was it.
Oh, and also, I haven't been tweeting Simpsons commercials or doing anything Wii related, but I do have a page. Check it out. Either Google Facebook use in a sentence, or I actually have the domain name this time. It's www.facebook.com/ or / whichever the one is that goes that way. It's
I like how you went that way. And did a hand motion as if anyone knows.
Yeah, I got a hand motion for you.
Oh boy, we're ending this episode very soon.
But anyway,
that sounded weird.
It's facebook.com/ use in a sentence page. That's I knew it was something like that. It's use in a sentence page, and that's my website that I run.
Check it out. It's very funny.
The name of.
Very funny, so check that out. And thanks for downloading the show, for supporting us, for clicking through the Amazon links.
We love you for it. We love you.
For telling everyone how much you love this show, for getting your friends into it. It really, really helps us out.
For annoying your friends by going, you really got to check that podcast
we annoy our friends.
Actually, tell your friends that, there's an episode of The Simpsons that might be worth checking out from season 26.
If you live in the Brooklyn area, unfortunately, you have just missed Simpsons Trivia. So come check out Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia at Berry Park. I co-host that with friend of the show and future and past guest Dan Ozzie. That's the first Thursday of every month. If you don't live in Brooklyn, but you live in Chicago or Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver or Ann Arbor, you have trivia nights close to you, just Google Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia for more information about that. We're coming back next week. We're doing it again. We're going to be back next week with another episode. We're watching Season 11. We're going way back.
Wow.
Season 11, we're going to be watching Behind the Laughter.
Ooh.
That's, I think, possibly a divisive episode amongst some people.
Well, people have told us that was going to be our new least worst episode ever, so this Judd Apatow one might not hold the title for long.
We'll see. I haven't seen it in a while.
Considering the gap between this one and the Skinner and the Michael Keaton episode, this seems like it's going to be tough to beat for now.
For a little while,
for a post-classic season.
We'll see. So Behind the Laughter, it's actually the 15th anniversary of when that episode aired. Will be when our episode comes out. So if that doesn't make you feel old, look in a mirror. Yeah. The ravages of age. All right, so that's it for us. As we've been ending the episodes, we're doing this Summer of Fans thing where you guys are submitting your cut all this phrases, your audio submissions. So we're going to cut over now, and that's how we're ending the show. All right, so this week we have another cut all this submission from a fan. Yes. Don't know his name. No, he did not include his name, and it didn't even come up with his email address. Yeah, so we don't want to give his email address just in case. If you're listening, which I assume you are, or I hope you are, it would be funny if you submitted it and really was like, I'm done with this show. This show has achieved peak excellence now that I have submitted to it. But let us know on Facebook or Twitter or on our website, whatever. Yes. Let us know who you are, because it's a really nice ending we're about to play for you. And guys, try to submit one too. We don't have any more left. And don't Jimmy the Greek it. Keep it short. WePodcast.com.
Hello, Dan, Jack, and all the Wii enthusiasts out there. I just want to take some time to give you some fun facts about the show, or specifically how long the show has left. Going forward, I'm implying that the Simpsons will end after season 28, which probably won't, but just, roll with me here. In that case, the total episode run would be 625 episodes. We Podcast has done 28 since the episode left, so we have 597 left to go. Implying that the guys will talk about The Simpsons 51 weeks out of the year, which obviously leaves the April Fool's episode, so they can talk about hanging with Mr. Cooper or dinosaurs or whatever. It'll take them roughly like 11.6.7 years to actually go through the entire catalog, implying that each episode takes roughly about 70 minutes. You'll have to listen to these guys for 41,790 minutes, 696 and a half hours, or just a little bit over 29 full days. So I'm guessing what I'm saying is just really just cut all of this. Cut everything that has happened, somehow go in the future and cut what is going to happen, because seriously, 29 days listening to two guys in Brooklyn talk about a show that has clearly passed its prime a decade ago, and also really bad impressions of Daleks and Pesci, you definitely can find a better use of your time. I obviously can't, though. But thanks for everything, guys.